welcome to Board Game Breakfast. My name is Tom Vasel and we're here to talk to you about board games. Thank you to all our fans who came and watched us play live, which I still think is not that interesting to do, but lots of people came and watched us play live. 18 hours of gaming this past weekend. Sorry we didn't make the full 24, but we were very tired. There's more live stuff coming up this week. I'll talk more about it when I get to Nightstar Productions, but I will say that at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time today, 1 p.m., I will be doing a live Q&A, and you can ask me questions. Maybe you want to ask about the Kickstarter. On January 5th, 2 weeks from today, we'll be starting our 2015 Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is a way we raise money so that we can run a Dice Tower over the course of the year. So maybe you have some questions about that today. And Dice Tower candy. Hang on till we get to the Dice Baby section of the show, and I'll show you some more about that. As it is, it's time for the news. It being Christmas time, not much news. In fact, I only have two pieces of news for you. One, Fantasy Flight announced the new Imperial Raider ship here for X-Wing miniatures. This is a large size ship that's going to go up against the Corellian Corvette. So now the Imperials finally get a big ship. Fantasy Flight hinted that they were going to be doing this. This is a really cool looking ship. I don't believe this showed up in any of the movies, but still it looks like almost like a giant TIE fighter crossed with a Star Destroyer and had a baby. Anyway, I look very much forward to that. And Trick Track, which is a French reviewing site, they announced their awards for 2014. The best game was Five Tribes. Runner-up was Lewis and Clark, and then Splendor. In this segment, I talk a little bit about what's on one of my shelves and why I keep these games. Here we have Mice and Mystics, which is a game that I actually don't even have the news expansion for it, but it's an adventure-style game along the lines of Descent, and it works really well with kids and has a very solid story behind it, and so that's why I've kept this one. Then we have Exodus Proxima Centauri, which, if you notice, has a Dice Tower Seal of Excellence because I really think it's a great game. It's like a shortened Twilight Imperium, and in fact, I don't have Twilight Imperium on my shelf because this one I think does a job better, or at least it does it in a shorter period of time. And Sam Healy has Twilight Imperium, so if I want to play it, I can play his copy. Steam Park is a very fantastic game about building a amusement park for robots, and a little bit of real time, a lot of rolling dice, a lot of fun for me there. Eldritch Horror, oh man, the game that took Arkham Horror off my shelves completely. It has a very similar feel to it, but here in a globe-trotting sort of way with a lot of adventure. And then this boring-looking game with the horrible artwork on the cover is Warlock. Warlock is a card game in which you use cards in various ways. You build like a grid in front of you of the city. You use cards to work for you, to produce money for you. There's different ways. An excellent little game that I was very, very fond of. Glad to have in my collection. So that's what's on this shelf.
Sean from the Discriminating Gamer. I thought I'd give Cody a break and review some games. You know, he usually reviews some pretty high intellect games. I thought I'd take it down a notch and review some games that maybe you haven't looked at in a while. The first game I'd like to look at is Chutes and Ladders by Milton Bradley. I gotta tell you, this game is fantastic. It comes with this really nuanced little spinner. You go up 1 minute, the next minute you're going down. You got these fantastic little pieces that move all around. I gotta tell you, up and down, it gives you the exhilarated feeling of being a crack-addled street urchin. Anyway, the next game I'd like to review is Sophie the First. I gotta tell you, much like Sophia the First is nothing more than a cheap knockoff of the other Disney princesses, this game is nothing more than a cheap knockoff of Chutes and Ladders. It has this hokey little spinner here. You always know what's gonna happen. 1 minute you're up, the next minute you're down. These pieces are crap. Gave me the uneasy feeling of being a crack-addled street urchin. The next game I'd like to review is Snakes and Ladders. Here's the board. Fantastic game. Totally out of left field. You use these fantastic little pieces. You're going up a ladder. The next minute you're going down a snake. You don't use a spinner. You use a dice. I don't know what's going on. You're up. You're down. I don't know. I can't even think of a metaphor for this game. It's a fantastic game. So in summation, I would say the first game, Chutes and Ladders, definitely buy it. Second game, don't bother. Third game, Snakes and Ladders, definitely buy it. I've been Sean with the Discriminating Gamer, and thanks for checking in.
Well,
The end of the year is upon us once again, and so what better time to look back at the gaming that the year behind us has provided. Personally, I've had a huge year of gaming. I have learned over 110 new games. Well, here's a list of what I've learned. That's better. Well, so let's start talking about some of those games. Coin Age. This is a micro game that was on Kickstarter, and it is actually 8-minute Empire. It is a great mix of strategic decisions and just a little bit of luck. And the best thing about it, it fits in your wallet. 5 Tribes. This is another beautifully produced game from Days of Wonder and Bruno Cathala. It uses a neat Mancala-like movement progression for placing your pieces, and it has a lot of beautiful bits to play with. Lost Legacy from AEG Games is the spiritual successor of Love Letter, and a lot of people call it Lost Letter. But joking aside, it does have enough differences in its mechanics that make it a different game, and the science fiction spaceship theme is going to help bring in some gamers who are maybe put off by the mushy lovey-dovey theme of Love Letter. Also from AEG is Cypher, or Love Runner. It's got a cyberpunk theme that's great, and the gameplay is substantially different from Love Letter, although it still does have the you want to have the highest ranking card in your possession at the end of the game victory condition. I love pirates, so when Space Cowboy announced Black Fleet, a game that does merchants and marauders on a Ticket to Ride timetable, I was in. Now, it is a bit of a table hog, but it's beautifully produced and a lot of fun to play. Leave us a comment letting us know what your most anticipated game of 2015 is, and don't forget to send your questions to AskSnakes@snakesandlattes.com. We'll see you next week.
Okay, the first thing I want to talk about in this segment here is Summoner Wars. Last week I did a review of Summoner Wars Alliance's Master Set, which is amazing! And a lot of people ask me where I got my sleeves. Well, the answer is very simple, and I should have mentioned it in the review. They're from Plaid Hat themselves. They have these new Summoner Wars sleeves here, which have the nice backing, which you can use. You can buy them in packs of 40, I believe, which is usually enough for each of the different armies. And they are very good quality. They're not penny sleeves, so I like them quite a bit. Secondly, and not related at all, is candy. All right, let's show you here from this bag here. I got Dice Tower candy. Now this Dice Tower candy, I found this company in California that made this hard candy, and they can make logos in it. And I thought, wow, this would be great stuff to hand out at a convention. It says Dice Tower, if you notice, with the die in. And the candy is actually really good tasting candy, which is why I got it made. I believe this flavor I have is the blue raspberry lemonade or something like that. And we handed it out at conventions, but there was just too much of it, and not everyone wants to grab candy out of a bowl. So I will send you a bag full of this candy if you send a $10 donation to the Dice Tower this week. Now, you want to send me a note first before you do it, just to make sure there's some of it left. And maybe nobody wants to do it, and that's fine. But I don't want this candy to go bad. I don't know how long candy lasts, but I mean, it's still fine. But I just need to clear it out before the Kickstarter, and we get everything started for next year. So if you're interested in it, hey, you can have Dice Tower candy. Anyhow, if you're interested, PayPal us at dicetower@gmail.com. Just let me a note that it's for the Dice Tower candy.
So my favorite game that I did not design or actually publish, I have a number of them, but my favorite two-player game would be Jaipur. Going to market and actually gathering goods and selling them off is a blast. And I love to work the camel, so it's all good. Jaipur would have to be my vote for my favorite two-player game. And then my actual multiplayer game would be Station Master from our friends over at Mayfair Games. Awesome game where you're building trains, loading up passengers, and sending them out of the station. It's a lot of fun. It's a little bit of trading of resources, if you will, but it's a good game that I think everybody would enjoy. So Station Master.
Hi, Suzanne here with this week's featured board game app. Now, I try to be a good person and not make snap judgments, but when the art in your game is so bad, I feel like my 6-year-old could do a better job. It's hard to get past that. So let's take a quick look at Dream Quest, which took me months to even bother opening, and see if you can overcome the worst art in a game ever. Combining roguelike dungeon delving with deck building, Dream Quest is, and I say this with love, the ugliest app I've ever played. But get past the art and you'll find a solid game in which you build your deck that you use to battle monsters. You can play as different character classes, and the deck building heart is well observed with ways to improve and cull your deck. As you play through the randomly generated dungeons, there are over 300 cards, a dozen classes, and 70 different monsters that you can unlock or encounter. You will perish frequently, but the pain of loss is mitigated by the way the game allows your overall progress with achievements to improve your starting stats over time. So not only will no game ever be the same, but you still feel a sense of progress. Features-wise, this is a solo-only game, so there's no multiplayer options. There are 3 levels of difficulty which reward you for harder play. There's kind of a tutorial that shows up when you first play, but it's light at best, and I can't find a way to access that or any rules once you've played. My biggest complaint about the game isn't actually the art, it's the UI elements. I don't find it very friendly or intuitive. You do get used to it, but there are some inconsistencies in card treatments and imagery that can be frustrating. But like the art, I got over it because I like the game so much. Believe me, I know this is a hard app to drop $3 on based on the look of it, but if you don't believe me, just read a few reviews. It gets great ratings, and I've spent hours having fun with this game. Dream Quest. It's got some rough edges, but I still recommend you give it a try.
For Nightstar Productions this week, I'm going to be trying to do a couple live things. I don't have the exact times of when we're going to be doing them because of it being Christmas, but we're going to try to do a live Heroescape game with myself and Melody, and also the Vasel kids and myself will try to do a live playthrough of Ultimate One Night Werewolf. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that coming up. And this week, there will be no reviews, but instead of there being reviews, each day this week, starting with tomorrow, you're going to see videos that talk about 2014. We'll have our top 10 games of 2014 with Dan King. We have our top 10 games of 2014 with Jason Levine. We have our top 10 with Mark Streed. And then we have the top 10 with us guys at the Dice Tower. So hopefully you guys will enjoy those videos. That's one of our productions this week. Our production will be slightly lowered because at least some of us are going to take off on Christmas Day. Of course, there's also the Dice Tower audio, which we do the best and worst of 2014. Part 1 is coming out tomorrow, and Part 2 the following Tuesday. And we have all our contributors, so many people involved in that. And of course, lots of other great podcasts, all can be found at DicetowerNetwork.com. All right, Chaz, tell us what else is great.
From Pair of Dice Paradise, and we are counting down my official top and bottom 3 games of 2014. These are the standouts that I played this year for the very first time, and today is going to be, oh boy, my biggest disappointment of 2014. Oh. First off, my disappointment doesn't mean that this is a bad game. I think this is a well-produced game, rightfully enjoyed by many, with great components, and it even won awards. Real awards! Not like those awards that I keep making up for myself, no. See, so you'd think that all of these factors combined would have made the game Istanbul a slam dunk for me, right? Right? Well, sure. On paper, it sounds like a game I should just love. But unfortunately, I found the opposite to be true. Here's why. While the game is comprised of 16 location tiles that you send your workers to, in multiple games that I played, the winner only had to use about 6 of them. A big part of the game is dropping off and picking up your little workers in locations throughout the board. But since I am lazy, I found this to be tedious. I can understand that it's to prevent spreading yourself too thin, but I never found myself in danger of this. In the end, dropping off and picking up all my little workers just seemed like busy work. And then there's the payment mechanism, where, in order to make a purchase, you need a certain number of what you're going to pay with in your inventory. But then you only spend one of it. Want to buy an upgrade to your workers? Sure, well just give me 1 pineapple. But only if you have 3 pineapples totally in your possession. If this was a game about securing financing for a used Honda, then sure, this sort of credit pre-qualification requirement may make sense then, but I don't know. Maybe they're planning an expansion that will add a certified pre-owned vehicle dealership to the game. I'd like that. I feel so dirty. Oh! Well, next time, I'll try to redeem myself with my favorite game that I played for the first time this year. Ha ha!
Hey folks, Tom Vasel here.
Jason Levine.
Today's question is about Kickstarter, and the person wrote in as, does Kickstarter hurt local stores? And what they mean is that there's a lot of games out there that are being Kickstarted, thousands of them. And so a store says, okay, I want to carry some games. But the people who would buy the Kickstarter game have already backed it on Kickstarter. So therefore, he gets 3 or 4 copies in stock, and nobody buys it because, well, hey.
They already Kickstarted it.
So is that hurting the local game stores because now everyone is buying all their games through Kickstarter?
Well, now that we talk about it that way, I think it might be. As you know, I don't kickstart games. Cough, 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 because one of our friends has kickstarted 3 games for me.
Okay, I just like to point out that that's the same thing as kickstarting them yourself. Okay? It's the same thing. It's like saying I don't murder someone, I just pay people to do it. Same thing.
But my hands are nice and clean. So anyway, I usually don't kickstart games in general, and I do pick up the games from my local game store, which happens to be Cool Stuff. Of course, I get those nice Cool Stuff prices when I buy them. But yeah, I can see like a small local game store like The Rock, which is our other game store that we go to play.
You buy some games from them too. So
I do. And every once in a while I buy something, especially if it's something that Cool Stuff doesn't carry. I'll make sure to buy it from The Rock to make sure that I support them. But I can see them, they don't carry a lot of board games anyway, but yeah, I can see if something was kickstarted, and most of our group does kickstart, and then they would be like, well, should we buy copies? And everyone in our group would have it already, so they'd have no incentive to want to buy copies. But I think there's enough games out there that, in general, it doesn't matter if a few games are...
Bingo. And that's the thing. Kickstarter is not yet hurting the local stores because there are still tons and tons of good games that are not on Kickstarter that you can get in the store. It's not like everything has gone to Kickstarter. If you look at the top games from 2014, many of them, very few of them actually, are from Kickstarter.
I think my whole top 10 list, I don't think there was one Kickstarter on that.
Maybe not, but on mine I think there was maybe 1, 2, or maybe even 3. But still, the very popular games are not Kickstarter. And if a game is on Kickstarter and is extremely popular, let's say Cool Mini or Nots games, right? They're very popular.
Yeah.
You can still carry those on your shelf and people will buy them. Sure, yes. You're losing money from the little Kickstarters, all those games. That's something you have to work out with your group. Some Kickstarters offer a retailer package, but even then, I don't know if that's worth it because are you going to buy 5 or 10 sell 5 or 10 copies of a maybe obscure, maybe not
that
good
may
game?
Or may not be good. I'd rather get my games from Asmodee Flights of Wonder and know that I'm getting a game in the store and knowing that I'll be able to sell the game because it's going to be there for everyone to buy.
I don't think Kickstarter is a help to local gaming stores, okay? I don't think it's sitting there. I don't think it's a supporter of local gaming stores. I know that some Kickstarter campaigns help more than others, but I don't think any of it's like super positive. At the most, it's like, well, we're kind of helping you. But at the same time, I don't think it's draining the pockets. Now, if Magic the Gathering starts kickstarting its stuff, then local stores are in trouble.
Yes, if some big thing starts kickstarting, then
and I just don't see that happening at this point.
No, because Kickstarter is for companies that can't just produce things on their own, so they're forced to do that route because they need the money up front in order to be able to do anything.
Up front. All right. Anyway, that's our answer for today. I'm Tom Vasel.
Jason Levine.
Send your questions to dicetower@gmail.com.
So in the second of our series looking at things that affect games in gaming sessions, we're going to look at picking the right game and the importance of doing so. This is often the case of even experienced players will sometimes go, what game do we feel like? What game are we all feeling like and wanting to play today? But I'm going to particularly look at today picking the right game when you have new gamers or inexperienced gamers in. For example, you might not want to bust out Twilight Imperium if you've got a brand new player. In fact, if you ever play Twilight Imperium with more a third of the people brand new, you're just adding hours to the game and a lot of
it's going to take far too long, especially this time of year, family around, you want to sit down and have some quick games with friends and family. Probably not the best choice.
Well, this is it. So if you're talking about people who don't play an awful lot of games coming to a gaming group and playing games, you might still go, okay, what's a good gateway game to get them in? And there's lots out there like Settlers of Catan and Carcassonne, they're all considered great gateway games. But you could also go talk about gateway games with family members and things at Christmas where you get to bust out the Christmas game. So we're going to look at 3 in particular, which are great to bust out, take about a minute to learn the rules, can play with everyone at Christmas, and great fun. And so we're going to start off first of all with the award-winning and the fantastic Love Letter. A fantastic game there. Very, very simple. Get a character.
Perfect combination. Simple to learn, but loads of permutations.
Tons of permutations. And
great replayability.
Often great for hilarity. I've absolutely loved that. Especially when people actually find very amusing ways to knock themselves out of the game. Dixit, another great little family game for Christmas. You can play it with the whole family. Again, very, very simple to learn, but quite a lot of depth to it when you're trying to be clever enough to get them to guess a card without giving it away to everyone. You can have some very, very random phrases and words used, trying to appeal to one person.
Absolutely.
But the one I'm certainly looking forward to playing this Christmas after the kids have gone to bed is Cards Against Humanity. It is the ultimate party game for horrible people, as it says on the box.
Not for the faint-hearted.
It's quite dramatic, but there you go. So 3 party games, fantastic at Christmas, great to bust out, and hopefully will keep everyone happy.
Almost a year ago, in Board Game Breakfast episode 9, at the beginning of this year, I made 10 predictions about gaming this year. Now, some of those predictions were based on things I knew or at least could see in the industry, and some of those were wild speculations. So now as 2014 is drawing to a close, let's see how correct I was on my predictions. First of all, I said there would be a shifting of companies. You would see companies like Plaid Hat and Level 99 and Greater Than Games grow bigger, and Asmodee grow bigger, and Yellow grow bigger, to the point where they'd be next to Fantasy Flight, at least in the case of Yellow and Asmodee, and the other ones you'd see them become major players. Well, this one I got mostly right. I don't know that Greater Than Games or Level 99 is where I said that they would be. I do think Plaid Hat has certainly moved up and is a major player in the industry, especially with the release of Dead of Winter. But Asmodee, okay, I said that they would be as big as Fantasy Flight. I was way off there, folks. They went way bigger than that. No one expected Asmodee to swallow up Days of Wonder and merge with Fantasy Flight. The second thing I said was that Dice Masters would be a massive hit and that there would be some crossover. Now, there was production delays with Dice Master over the course of the year, but those production delays were because it really was a massive hit. It was a game that sold out before it was in the stores. They went through like the first 3 print runs. It came out and it is everywhere. And it is not, I'm not saying it's as big as Magic or even half as big as Magic, but you could be 1/10 as big as Magic and I'd consider you to be a massive hit. So I think I was pretty right on this one. Then I said that we would see board games growing in the video game arena. There'd be more growth there and you see more crossover, especially with PAX. And I think we're seeing that, especially with Will Wheaton leading the charge with the tabletop and bringing more people there. This one's harder to quantify, but I think I'm correct here. We're seeing more and more people from that genre playing board games. I said that the Origins Awards would get the least complaints ever and that they would be considered pretty decent this year, and I think I was correct. They picked some solid games. The board game they picked was Trains. I heard very few complaints about them overall, so hooray! Then I said that CCG, an old CCG like Netrunner, would come back from the dead. And it did. Doomtown came back as Doomtown Reloaded. So I was right on the nose with that one. I think I said it'd be pretty popular. I don't know if it's not nearly as popular as Netrunner, but it seems to be growing in audience and a lot of people are enjoying that. Then I said that all the major conventions would grow. And I think I was dead on with this one too. Every major convention got huge. Gen Con exploded. Origins had a 10% increase. The Board Game Geek Con went up. All the different conventions, all the small conventions grew. Now this is because board gaming itself was growing, which is what I said, and it was just, we saw amazing growth in the industry this year. Then I said that Kickstarter would level out this year. That I wasn't saying it would go down, in fact probably overall rise, but that we would see the excitement wane, that we wouldn't see this huge, Kickstarter. And I think I'm right there. Time will bear me out on this one, but Kickstarter projects are still coming along and people are still getting excited, but we're not seeing like the Kickstarter buzz. We're seeing it from the people running them, of course. They're trying to increase that, but it's almost, sometimes there's a faint whiff of desperation about it because people are trying to get these games. Oh, please, look at my game. But we're seeing many, many more games being released on Kickstarter. But I think overall the excitement about individual projects is lower. There's still some big breakout projects each year, but I think Kickstarter indeed has leveled out to become kind of like the new norm in a sense. I also said there'd be a major scandal. I don't think there was a major scandal in Kickstarter this year, at least in the board gaming side of things. If I'm missing something, maybe a viewer will remind me, but I was wrong on. Then I said that there would be an explosion of mini games and that 2014 would be the peak of them. Well, there's no way for us to tell whether they'll be the peak or not. Well, that will take more years. But I think there was quite a few of them, although it was at the beginning of the year. And since it's kind of died out as it went by, I think maybe that's it. Now, Steve mentioned earlier that AEG has the Love Letter and the Lost Legacy and all their different little games. And Tasty Minstrel had several of these small games like Coinage and such. But we're not seeing these games. When I go to conventions, I'm not seeing everybody playing them and pulling them out everywhere. And the buzz on these really dies out fast. So I'm gonna say I'm right, but we'll find out in the future. And then I said that this would be the year that there would be iOS in the board game and that everybody would be talking about it. 3 times over, I think I was right there. We have the Golem Arcana, although you could argue that that's a miniature game. Well, if that's the case, then we have Alchemist here, which definitely used the iOS or the Android to great effect. And then XCOM would be the third one, although technically that's not coming out now to 2015. But still, hooray! And then I would say my number one was that there would be a mega hit this year, along the lines of Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, Dominion, etc. Well, no, that did not happen. I believe there was some big games. There was Splendor did quite well this year. Sushi Go did well. Dice Masters did well. But I don't think any of those anybody would consider to be a mega hit. So I was erroneous in that one. I do think, though, for the most part, I got them right, which is, of course, pure blind dumb luck. So we'll have to wait in a week or 2 weeks, I guess. I'll make my predictions for 2015, which again will be wild speculation. But it is interesting to look back at this and see how the industry's grown and changed over 2014. Let's move on.
This time of year, it's customary to produce best of or worst of lists for all the games that have come out in the preceding 12 months. Well, we're not going to do that here at Whitleypedia. Instead, we're going to recognize a very old game, one that recognized its 40th anniversary this year, oddly enough, without much fanfare. Namely, Dungeons & Dragons. Yes, I realize we don't talk much about RPGs on the Dice Tower, but I will bet all the Electrum pieces I own that you, yes you, have at some point in your gaming career played Dungeons & Dragons. Or if not D&D, then some other RPG, though the D&D brand is so strong it's kind of like Xerox. When my friends get together to play any RPG, regardless of what it is, we still refer to it as getting together for D&D. And for those of you that may have never entered the realms of Dungeons & Dragons, you've certainly played games that are influenced by it. Whether it's something as simple as the concept of hit points, or as esoteric as rolling a dice with more than 6 sides. It's there because of D&D. You could also argue that D&D was the first ever cooperative game. Seriously, if we look at the hobbies that exist today, it owes a lot more to D&D than it does to chess, Monopoly, poker, or Scrabble. But for as much fun as a D&D campaign can be, setting one up and maintaining one is an enormous challenge. Just getting together to play board games is a lot easier. Seriously, if setting up a board game group is like fighting a bunch of kobolds, then running a D&D group is like fighting the Tarrasque. Recently, at my regularly scheduled Monday night board game group, we started talking about the new 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons that came out this year. Two of us started talking about maybe we should do a campaign, and the news spread like wildfire. All of a sudden, a dozen people in the group wanted to get together to play D&D with us, to the point that we had to split into 2 different groups, neither of which is able to meet as regularly as the standard Monday night board gaming group. For many of us, playing board games is a way to get our D&D fix when we can't get our hands on the good stuff. Kind of like methadone. So happy 40th birthday, Dungeons & Dragons. Thanks for all the happy times and an enduring legacy of fun and adventure. And next week, we'll take an even closer look at how this game has affected our hobby.
Thank you, Jared. Hey, folks, thank you. I hope you come back and watch me today. I have Q&A at 1 o'clock, and I hope you watch the different things that we put out this week. But in case you don't watch, and this is the only thing you're watching, I do want to say a very Merry Christmas to all of you. You guys have been great. We've enjoyed having you watch us this year, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff, in stock, at CoolStuffInc.com.